making sure you are controlling the weight and the weight isn't controlling you, okay? You cannot Amazon Prime your perfect body. It just does not work that way. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel CZ.fit here, and I hope you guys are doing well. So happy December. Like, how is it already December? It's honestly what, like 2.5 weeks away from Christmas? Less than 20 days. Like, what in the world? Honestly, where did 2021 go? I honestly feel like it's still 2020. In my head, next year is 2021 because, I don't know, I feel like lockdown just merged into 1 year. I don't know if you feel me here, like if you get me. But lockdown just did not seem like a year in itself. It seemed like we were, I don't know, frozen in time. Anyways, in today's video, I wanted to discuss 10 reasons why you perhaps aren't seeing the progress that you're expecting from the gym. In other words, why perhaps you don't look like you lift, even though you do lift. So before we get started, if this is something that you kind of relate to, you know, feeling like you're going to the gym, you're putting in the effort, but you're not really seeing those results, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe because it really does mean the absolute world to me. It really does support my channel, and yeah, it means the world. So it takes 1 second, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and yeah, let's get started. Reason number one could be essentially that you are not eating enough, okay? And I think a lot of us girls do struggle with this. We subconsciously tell ourselves, yeah, I'm eating enough, but you really aren't. That's number one. Or you're not eating enough because you technically just don't know how to eyeball your food and you are overestimating your calories. So I think there's two of us. Like, you've got the people who underestimate how much they're eating. They look at a burger and they're like, oh, that's probably just 300 calories, but it's like 1,000 calories, and they're wondering why they can't lose weight. And then you have the other group of people who overestimate, right? So they look at, I don't know, a salad, they're like, yeah, that's definitely my, you know, half of my daily intake, but it's like just leaves. So if your main goal is, you know, muscle building, if you're in a position where your body fat isn't that high and you really just want to prioritize getting stronger, building on that muscle so that if you go into a dieting phase later, you know, you have muscle to kind of cut into, it is really important that you are making sure you're eating enough. So not eyeballing your food and just, you know, going about the day with no particular plan in terms of what food you're eating, but actually starting your day knowing, you know, what calories you're trying to hit, what macros you're trying to hit, and actually tracking your food accurately. So not looking at a bowl and being like, I'm just gonna find a generic input on my fitness pal, enter it in, cool, that's me done. Actually taking it seriously, right? Like, the effort you put in essentially equals your results, okay? So if you put in 50% of the effort, you eat 50% of the food, you're going to get probably at max 50% of the results and 50% of the gains. So that is number one. Like, the reason why you may not be seeing progress is because you're simply not eating enough, and you think you are, but you're really not. So reason number two builds off from reason number one, which is essentially you struggle to hit your macros. So you're not actually being consistent in hitting those. Yes, maybe you're tracking, but every day it is a struggle for you to get your food in. And you could be one of those people who just naturally has a fast metabolism. You know, it takes you a lot more to actually build on muscle, to put on mass. And you probably find that you're always dropping weight as soon as, you know, you're not hitting those macros to the T. Now, if you are someone who does struggle to hit your macros, and you're feeling too full from even just getting halfway there, I really would suggest you look at what foods you're opting for and opt for high calorie, lower volume foods. And this can start from even the protein sources that you are going for. So for example, if you naturally like to have chicken breasts, perhaps just swapping to chicken thighs could essentially reduce the volume of proteins you need, because essentially thighs have a lot higher fat content than chicken breasts. Same thing with beef. So if you are used to having, you know, 5 to 7% lean beef, beef, perhaps going for a 15% lean cut instead. Having a higher fat percentage in your beef cuts can easily bump up your calories without actually bumping up the volume of food you're eating. Now, on top of that, as we talk about oils, again, oils are a very easy way to bulk up your foods without adding any sort of volume. So perhaps when you're cooking, adding some more cooking oils in, measuring out your oils, obviously, because if you're just going to go ahead and pour in shitloads of oil, you'll probably find that you'll actually end up exceeding your daily intake without realizing. So just to be accurate, make sure you are weighing out your oils, but start adding in more oils into your food. That could even be, you know, dressings, chili oil, different kind of flavors, sesame oil for stir fries. You can have fun with it, you know, like you don't have to just go for boring cooking oils just to make things greasy, right? You can essentially use this as a way to, you know, spice up your foods, have fun with it. You're lucky because, you know, you actually have that luxury of just bulking up your foods with additional sauces and oils and things here and there to meet your macro intake. And on top of that, as I said, sauces, that is again something else that you can add, which again is not going to add any volume. Like when you think about adding mustard, ketchup, I don't know, mayonnaise, what other sauces are there? Barbecue sauce. It's a very easy addition to your meals. You're not going to really feel it, but it's going to pack in a lot more calories. So that's another way, another easy way to get in more carbs as well to hit your macro intake. Now, as we talk about carbs, something else to look at is also your carb source. So potatoes, amazing in volume. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, you know, they're great if you're dieting because it just means for the same amount of carbs, you could have a much larger portion of food compared to say rice or your grains. But if your problem is not dieting and your problem is, I can't actually get in my carbs, like I am way too full, opt for things such as bagels, bread, oats. Oats are slightly higher in volume, rice, pasta, things like that. They're much lower in volume and they're going to give you your carbs in a smaller quantity of food. So again, making it a lot easier to hit your macro intake. Even cereals, like they are delicious. Obviously, I'm not saying live off a sugary cereal diet, but you do have the luxury of having higher calories to play around with. So you can always opt for those, you know, foods that are very low in volume, that aren't going to keep you feeling very full if you are dieting. But because your problem isn't dieting, go for those foods, you know, have those fun foods, add them in, and that is easily going to add up into your calorie intake. Now, reason number 3 why perhaps you're not seeing the gains that you are expecting is that you are obsessed with the scale number or staying lean all year round. Again, something that perhaps you're subconsciously doing, so in the back of your mind, you're just scared to push. As soon as you see the scale number bump up a little bit, you freak out and you draw back on your calories, or you kind of intentionally don't hit your macros. And because it's something that you almost do just naturally and you try to brush it off, you don't realize that those little days where you are, you know, not hitting your macros and trying to undereat because you saw the weight fluctuate, it's actually stalling your progress. And it's the reason why perhaps your body is not changing and you're not building the muscle that you're expecting. And it simply comes down to the fear of seeing the weight increase. And something that we have to understand is, look, like if you are building muscle mass onto your body, if you are adding extra tissue onto your body, naturally your weight is going to bump up, right? Furthermore, like if you are eating more, you have more food in your stomach. So again, obviously your weight is going to bump up. So there are so many reasons why, you know, the scale is going to change, but you do have to kind of accept that that is part of this journey, right? Like you've got your weight loss journey where you see your scale decrease, then you've got your building phase where you actually have to embrace the scale going the other way. Like it simply cannot just stay the same, or you simply cannot be fixated on that scale number going down, because your goal right now in a building phase is not to see it go down. If it's going down, it means that you're actually not eating enough and that you're doing the opposite, right? Like if you see your weight dropping by, I don't know, kg, half kg every week, well, you're simply actually not building, you're simply not adding mass onto your body because the scale number is decreasing. Obviously, we have to put into context like body recomp and all of that, but in general, like if your weight just keeps dropping dramatically, unless your primary goal is fat loss, I would really just take a step back and be like, okay, look, like this is not right. Like I'm trying to build muscle, I'm trying to be in a building phase, and yet, you know, week on week, my weight is dropping. It is obviously a sign that I actually need to eat more. And on top of that, it's not just the scale weight, but naturally you may get a little fluffier, part of the process. And I think, again, as females, sometimes it's hard to accept. Even for males, I'm sure it's hard sometimes, but I think as females we are a bit more sensitive towards small changes in our body, perhaps our clothes feeling a little bit tighter, we see our cheeks come a little bit rounder, and that freaks us out. And honestly, I relate because I've been there, you know, especially competing. Like, I have been to both extremes, so you can bet my body dysmorphia sometimes after show is like, you know, next level. But what I have learned is that you really do have to detach yourself and your emotions from how much fluff you have on your body. Like, you know, if you're looking a little softer, if your weight goes up a little bit, so what? You know, like, nothing is permanent. The body that you are in is not permanent. And I think that is really empowering to know that you have full control. As long as you put in the work that's needed, you can get your body to whatever destination you want it to be. You know, so if you gain a bit of fluff, cool, you can easily lose it by being in a calorie deficit. But if your end goal is to actually have built on muscle and really tone up, get stronger and build more shape, you do have to go through this phase, or else you're just going to be constantly dieting, and no one gets anywhere from just constantly dieting. And yeah, maybe you'll stay in your comfort zone because you'll never have to see the weight increase, right? Or you'll always just have a stable weight, it never changes, you'll never feel like your clothes are getting tighter. But are you moving closer to your ultimate goal? Not really, because you've stayed comfortable and you've literally changed nothing, right? So it is about being able to understand that part of your building journey and building muscle does mean that the scale weight is going to change. And just embrace it. Like, enjoy the journey, enjoy being a little fluffier, enjoy being a little curvier. That's awesome, you know. There are so many perks of being in a building phase. You feel so much stronger, your recovery is so much better, you have so much energy, you have the luxury of eating so much more delicious food. Like, really do embrace this journey. Now, reason number 4 is you are purely relying on supplements. So you think that, you know, you don't have to be too careful with your nutrition, the foods you're eating, your training, because you've got those supplements, you know, like you're obsessed with getting the latest EAA, the best pre-workout, protein powders, all this. I'm gonna say yes, like, I take all of those because firstly, I'm in a position where I'm lucky enough to be supplied by EHP Labs. Like, they sponsor me, so that's awesome. But it is not the be all end all. So what I'm going to say is, if you are not even nailing your nutrition or your workouts, no amount of supplements that you invest in is going to get you those results. Supplements are essentially there to supplement a good diet and a good training program. So you need those foundations first before you start adding on the supplements. What these supplements do is they accelerate, you know, your recovery, your progress, your energy at the gym, your performance. They optimize your journey essentially. But, you know, if your journey is not on the right path, it doesn't make sense to then supplement, right? It's almost like saying, I guess if we were to look at a car going to a certain destination, if you've put in the wrong destination on Google Maps and it's leading you to a different place, no matter how much fuel or how good your car is, and no matter, you know, what fancy wheels you get, yeah, cool, it's going to accelerate you maybe, but it's not going to get you to where you want to be. So it's important that you actually have the journey and the roadmap properly placed out first. So that is your program, your training, and your nutrition before you start adding in the best fuel for your car, which is, you know, your body in this case. But I hope that metaphor makes sense. But basically what I'm trying to say is to make sure you're training properly first and that you are eating properly. So actually looking at your nutrition, your macros, hitting them, and then supplementing so that you can actually have those supplements benefit something that's actually, you know, properly put in place. Now, if you don't have the option to get every supplement under the sun, because there are so many, and I understand it's very confusing because it's like, wow, where do I begin? Also, if you are limited with budget, I would say just stick to the main supplements that are really going to make the biggest impact. This would be your creatine, your EAAs, and then the next one I would say is pre-workout. Obviously, if you struggle to hit your protein intake, or if you just need something that's fast source of protein, obviously your protein powders. So those 4 would be, you know, what I would say are my staples. Pre-workout wise, if you function fine and you feel like you don't need that extra kind of mental clarity, that drive, and perhaps, you know, the caffeine from a stim pre-workout, then that's something that you can add as like an additional bonus if you have the budget. But I definitely would say creatine EAAs and protein powder is definitely a great place to start, and they're typically available in most stores. I would definitely recommend EHP Labs, not just because I'm working with them, but because I actually really do love their products, and their Blessed protein is great. It's vegan based. It's vegan. Vegan based, what does that even mean? It's plant based and it doesn't cause you to bloat or anything, and the flavor range is freaking amazing. They've actually just launched a chocolate milk flavor, which I have been loving. I know I love the PB cups, but I think chocolate milk may be my favorite. It's very creamy. It's like a creamy chocolate taste. It pretty much just tastes like a milkshake from, I don't know, like your burger joint or wherever you get milkshakes from. I'm not really a milkshake person, but it tastes like a milkshake that you would get from a cafe or some fast food chain that you deep down know is probably packed with like 2,000 calories. But this one's only like, I think 130 calories per serving and 23 grams of protein. So it's a nice swap. So that is what I would suggest. But again, as I said, I would only go into supplements once I know that my training program is on point and that I am on top of my nutrition. Now that we are touching on training program, this naturally leads me to reason number 5, which is your training program is not optimal. Okay, yes, you are lifting, you're going to the gym, you're going through the motions, but if your training program is not optimal, you're not going to get where you want to be. What I mean is sometimes I see people doing just purely isolation movements before their major compounds. They're really prioritizing the leg extension. How much can I leg extend? Is that a way to say it? What is my PB on my leg extensions? You know, how much can I hamstring curl? All these things. Prioritizing all those movements before your compounds, which are, you know, your squats, your deadlifts, your barbell hip thrusts, the leg press, all that. You're prioritizing those isolation movements where you're only targeting one muscle group, a much smaller muscle group, over compound movements that actually utilize a lot of large muscles at once. And naturally, you're never going to be able to push to really high weights on a leg extension or a hamstring curl, okay, just because you are just isolating using one muscle group. Whereas if you were to look at your barbell squats, your hip thrusts, your deadlifts, leg press, you could be pressing or pushing so much more weight. So it's important that you actually have those compound movements at the start of your program where you firstly have the most energy, the most strength, and you are ready to attack your program, because most of you can relate. Towards the end of a workout, you're pretty tired, you're pretty fatigued, and the last thing I think you can do is actually push for a PB on a squat, which is a very taxing movement at the end of your training program. So make sure you are prioritizing those compound movements, get those done first, really try to hit those PBs there, and then move on to isolation movements such as those hamstring curls, leg extensions, etc. And all the programs that I write for my girls follow this rule. It's not really a rule, it's kind of just logic. You know, prioritizing your compound movements, really trying to progress on them, get strong on them, and then we use those isolation movements to work on those smaller muscle groups, isolating your quads, really feeling your quads fire up through the leg extension, you know, really focusing on your hamstrings through those hamstring curls, but only after you've actually smashed out those compound movements which are targeting all your muscles at once. Reason number 7, are we on number 7? I think we are on number 7. Reason number 7 is you're not actually pushing yourself as hard as you think you are. And I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear this. They're probably like, okay, you've offended me now. I work super hard at the gym. I train hard. But I'm sorry to break it to you, but a lot of you don't actually train as hard as you think you're training. And what I mean is you're not actually really going close to failure. Most of you are leaving 2 to 3 reps in reserve, which I mean 2 to 3 extra reps that you're just not pushing out, because you get to a point in your exercise where it starts burning and you're like, oh, I'm done. Don't want to be offensive, like I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm just being like straight up here. And I know this because I have watched so many people's form, like with all my clients, even people who I have trained with, and also because I've done this myself. Like, you know, the first few years of my training, I was like, far out, that was hard, that was a hard set. And then I started training with others who were more experienced with me. I, you know, got my own coach, and then just through years of, you know, training, I realized I never actually was pushing to my full potential, but that's because I didn't know my full potential. So a lot of you guys probably think, you know, you're going hard at the gym, but you're actually only giving like 75%. So next time you go to your workout, I want you to tell yourself every time you finish your set, I'm going to do one more. Like, make it a non-negotiable. After every set, when you think you're done, do one more, and you'll be surprised. You'll probably be able to squeeze out one more, and then once you get that one extra rep, you'll probably be like, actually, I have a bit more in me, and you'll probably find that you could do 2 or 3 more. Yeah, maybe the last 1 to 2 isn't perfect in terms of form. Perhaps you have to use momentum from other parts of your body, but you still have it in you just to push out even like half a rep more. And that's when you know you've actually gone to failure, where you are pushing to a point where if someone had a gun to your head and was like, do one more, you'd be like, shoot me. I physically can't, so it's really important that you kind of test your own limits, and you realize where that 100% is, because I can guarantee most of you are performing at 75%, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, because you probably don't know anything else, which again is completely natural. If you are new to the gym, if you are relatively new to resistance training, you haven't had anyone help or guide you, it's very easy to kind of get to a point where our muscles have lactic acid built up, we're a bit sore, and we're like, okay, I'm done. But when you're done, tell yourself, I've got one more, and you would be surprised. So that is, reason number 7 is that you're actually just not pushing yourself as hard as you need to be. And this is not just for one session, but your next session. If you are going into each session just doing the same thing, if nothing changes, nothing's going to change, right? Like, your muscles are not going to grow unless they're given additional stimulus over time. And that's what essentially progressive overload is about. Like, being able to get into a training program, being like, okay, last time I hit, X amount of reps, 8 amount of reps at this weight. Next week, I'm going to try 9 reps at that weight. The following week, I'm going to try 10 to 11 reps, but always trying to push yourself a little bit further. Once you reach the rep range given to you by your coach or your training program, for example, if it said 12 reps and you've hit 12 reps and you're like, okay, I could have actually done 2, 3, 4 more, for next time, increase the weight so that you can reach around 10 to 12 reps and you're struggling by the end, like you are actually going to failure at your given rep range. Now that we are talking about progressive overload, wow, all of this is like flowing so naturally. It's almost like I didn't plan this out. The next reason is you are not tracking your workouts, okay? So I know that maybe it's a bit like, oh, I have to track everything. Like, I thought it was just my food. Now I have to track my workouts. Like, just let me be. Look, if you don't track your workouts, how much you're lifting each week, how many reps you're doing, how each workout felt, how do you know what to do next week? You're not going to remember. Like, I really doubt you're going to be like, oh, last week on Monday at 5 p.m, this exercise, I remember at the 7th rep, it got a bit hard. The 8th reps I could push out, but I failed at the 9th rep. You're not going to remember, okay? So it's so important that you have a way to log your workouts, whether that's a logbook, which is what I like to use, because I find that if I got my phone, I get distracted. That's just me, but I end up doing work. It's really bad, but I end up writing out captions or thinking about captions for my Instagram or about like content. It's really bad. It's like I need to be able to like prioritize things in my brain a bit better, like compartmentalize things, but that is a me problem. Anyway, so I use my logbook, and I like the look of writing something in my book. I feel a bit more like professional. I'm like, yeah, here's my book. Let me write things out. I write out all my exercises before my training, each set, how many reps. I write down what weight I hit, how many reps I hit, and how each one felt. So next to my logbook, you will see like some words being like FML or yay, or wow, this was horrible, or I want to kill myself. A lot of like small notes to my future self, so that I can remember how that session went. Long story short, find a way to track your workouts. So my girls, they have an app where they can track their workouts, and I can also see what they're doing. So sometimes I will go into to what they've logged in, and I'm like, hey, if you can do 3 sets at the same weight, or you can do more reps in your last set, you clearly didn't go heavy enough in your first set, okay? Because that makes logical sense, right? Like, your last set should essentially see your performance sort of drop off because it's your last set, you're fatigued. But if you're actually doing more reps at the same weight, it obviously means that for that first set where you had the most energy and most strength, you didn't go as heavy as you could have. So just small things like that can really help your progress, and it is about just the finer details, okay? Like, it is so important that you look at all these little aspects, because they add up. All the small details add up towards your progress, and if you are really trying to push yourself to, obtain as much progress as possible, it is important that you are focusing, day to day on your workouts, what you're doing each session, pushing yourself, logging in your workouts each week, each day that you are at the gym. Now, the next reason why perhaps you're not getting the results you want to is down to your form. So we've talked about, progressive overload, tracking your workouts, making sure your training program is correctly structured. But if all that is in place, but you're not actually executing with proper form, your progress is going to stall. So what I mean is, have you seen those guys in the gym who lift as heavy as they can, but they're literally bouncing? They're like moving every inch of their body, like, perhaps they're doing lateral raises and they are like more so doing a calf workout at that point. Or people who are leg pressing, but they're more so doing a calf raise because their range of motion is like minimal. But yeah, they've got like 10 plates on each side, but their leg is moving like this much. So execution is so important. Again, this is why I get all my girls to send me form checks, because if you are not executing properly, you are almost wasting your time at the gym. Okay, like again, I don't want to sound blunt, but I'm going to be really straight up here. If you go into gym and say you are trying to do lateral raises, but you are going way too heavy and you're bouncing up and down, you're moving your upper body, you're swinging it, you're not really targeting your shoulder muscles, which actually are very small muscles. So you're going to have to go lighter. And I think a lot of people underestimate that, right? They think they can go a lot heavier with their raises and they struggle, and they're using their traps, their upper body, their lower body, everything. So it's so important that you are executing your exercises properly. And then alongside that, also making sure that part of the execution is your control and your tempo. Okay, so tempo, what I mean by tempo is when you are, say, performing a squat, are you just shooting all the way down like you're on a freaking slide? So you've got the barbell and you just shoot all the way down and then you come back up? Or are you controlling the weight? So you've got the barbell on you, you take a breath in, you brace your core, you engage your body, and you count for 3 seconds as you lower down slowly, okay? Because that makes a massive difference to how long your muscles are under tension for, which is what we call time under tension. But essentially, long story short, I'm not going to go into too much detail. All you need to know is that you need to make sure that your execution is on point. So making sure you are controlling the weight and the weight isn't controlling you, okay? And again, it's something that I think even I struggled with when I first started, because I wasn't aware, I thought that it was just about how much I was lifting, and I was like, throwing PBs here and there. Like I get out of the gym and be like, yeah, I hip thrust 150 kgs. I look back and I'm like, I was not ready to hip thrust that much. Like I didn't even feel it in my glutes. I was using like my whole body to get that weight up, but I got the weight up, but it didn't really count. Like I really didn't see that much progress in my glutes until actually recently, where I have dropped my weight and I kind of threw my ego out the door and was like, look, I need to kind of restart this and just understand proper execution. And I've built my way up back to 150 now, well, over 150, but with much better execution. Like I am taking 3 seconds to lower the weight down. I'm really actually just using my glutes, like no other muscle group, and I've seen progress so much in my glutes just from doing that. So it is kind of like ditching that ego, being like, you know what, I care so much more about my execution and my form, and actually targeting the correct muscles over just lifting as heavy as I can and trying to look like a badass at the gym. Now, the next reason why you may not be seeing your progress is that you are actually not giving yourself enough rest and recovery time. So something that I think a lot of us, especially at the beginning of our fitness journey, we neglect. We think rest is for the weak. I want to train as much as possible for as long as possible so that I can make maximal gains. I was there. I used to train every day of the week and my body was so fatigued. But I thought like that was me being badass and being hardcore and accelerating my progress. But look, when you go to the gym, you are stimulating your muscles, you're breaking down your muscle tissues so that when they build again, when they repair, they grow bigger and they grow stronger. That's essentially how it works. But in order for them to actually repair and to grow, you actually need to rest them. That's how they grow. They grow through recovery and rest. So if you're not giving yourself dedicated rest days, you are just going to run yourself into the ground. Each session is just going to get worse and worse, right? You're going to go in, you're still going to be fatigued. You haven't had any days off and you're still trying to, smash out those PBs, but your body's like, hang on, give me a break. Like these muscles need repairing, they need growing, but we haven't had the time to do so because you keep breaking us down even further, okay? So important that with your training split, regardless of how many days you want to train per week, it's so important that you have those rest days in there. So maximum, if you're training 5 days a week, make sure you have maybe 3 days on, 1 day rest, 2 days on, 1 day rest. If you are wanting to have a split where, you know, you train a particular body part on a particular day, if you have a 3-day split, say it's a full body split, making sure that you still have those rest days, you know, spread out throughout the week. So really important that you look at your rest days as just as important as your training. And what I mean by that as well is actually resting on your rest days, okay? Like, it's so easy for us, especially those who love the gym, to be like, oh, it's my rest day, I have some time today, I might go just do some cardio. Cool, it's great to stay active, but you aren't really giving yourself actual proper rest. So it's really important that you do realize that, you know, rest is just as important as pushing at the gym, and you can only push more at the gym when you have fully recovered. Like, you know, after a good days of rest and sleep, you probably feel so rejuvenated the next day. And that's how you want to feel going into your next workout. You don't want to go into your next workout having not rested and being still drained because you decided to take your rest day into, I don't know, the boxing ring. If you are trying to find ways to spice up your rest day and to do insane other types of workouts, it's not going to do you any favors. Now, the final reason is that you just haven't been consistent and you actually have not given yourself enough time. So, you know, I think that we now live in a society where things are given to us instantly. You know, we don't actually have to practice too much patience, right? So if we want to see a movie, we just go on Netflix. If we want to see a TV show, Netflix. You know, if we want food quickly, we order it from Uber Eats, right? Everything is given to us instantly. Even Amazon Prime, you need something, it comes within like a few hours. It's crazy. So I think a lot of us are so used to this that we don't realize that our fitness journey and progress in terms of building muscle, you know, improving our body comp, improving our relationship with food, finding balance, all of these things, getting stronger takes so much time. It's not an Amazon Prime sort of thing. You cannot Amazon Prime your perfect body. It just does not work that way, sadly. So you just probably have not been consistent enough and given yourself time. So if you know that you have a proper training program in place and that you have nailed all these other things that I have talked about, then you just need to have patience, okay? You just have to shop every day for yourself. Enjoy the journey, like really just be more absorbed into the journey than the end goal, okay? Because if you just keep focusing on that one end goal, you're going to get discouraged and you're probably going to want to quit. Because look, the end goal is always, firstly, the end goal is always going to be something that keeps changing, because as you progress, you're just going to want to be better, and that's awesome, you know, like you're always going to want to become better and better and better. But that also means that if you are just focused on that laser goal, the end goal, it can be very discouraging, right? And secondly, you want to see this as a lifestyle change. Like, why do you work out? Why do you eat in that way? It's not just because you want to look a certain way, but you want to live a healthier life. You want to live a happier, more confident life, right? And you spend most of that in the journey. You are the one who's training every day and eating in a particular way. So you really have to make sure that you are enjoying the journey, giving yourself that patience and time. And the more you enjoy the journey, the less you're actually going to be so laser focused on the end goal, because you'll just be focused on your day-to-day, right? You're going to be focused on, what am I going to eat next to hit macros? You know, what foods can I play around with? What kind of training am I doing tomorrow? You know, what is my logbook looking like? Like, what numbers do I want to hit next week? So really be absorbed into the journey, rather than being so fixated on how quickly can I get to my goals, because it's going to take time. You know, it's going to take years. I'm not going to lie here. Like, unless say you are really, really overweight and you're trying to lose fat, yes, you know, your fat loss will be quite fast at the start, but then it is going to plateau for a bit, and then it is going to take time as well. So at the end of the day, regardless of your goals and where you're starting from, it is always just going to take consistency, time, and patience, and just showing up for yourself. And you know what? I think that's awesome, because that is why so much discipline is cultivated through a fitness journey, right? Because it does take you getting through that mental kind of barrier of being like, I want things instantly, I want instant results, and being like, you know what? I'm okay with just making sure I tick off the boxes, and understanding that the progress is going to take time, it's going to take discipline, it's going to take setbacks. I'm going to go on holiday, I'm going to live my life as well. I'm probably going to have challenges, I may get sick, I may fall off track, I may lose motivation. All these things are so natural. And I think once you start understanding that, and once you start accepting that, you're going to see your progress so much faster, because it just becomes a lot faster when you're not as absorbed into that end goal. So yeah, that is kind of a ramble, but what I want to say is you need to give yourself patience, okay? You need to stop expecting instant results. The things you see on Instagram, if you see, you know, sudden 12-week transformation changes, all those things, that you have to understand that like it does not just take 12 weeks, okay? Like your fitness journey is not just 12 weeks. If it is, your results are going to be short-lived. Like, yeah, you could cut out everything in your life and just dedicate yourself to a insane transformation, okay? But it's not going to be sustainable, because one day you're gonna wake up and be like, I want to eat out with my friends. I want to go on holiday and maybe just take a week away from training. I want to, you know, have a bit more balance in my life. And when it comes to that point, you're going to be like, oh, I don't know how to sustain this progress and this rate of progress if I actually want to live my life. So it's important that you give yourself the time and that you just enjoy the journey. So I think that was 10 tips. I hope someone was counting, because I kind of wasn't. But yeah, I do hope that this was helpful, because I know that sometimes it can be really discouraging to feel like you're giving it your all, you're showing up to the gym, but nothing's really happening. Yeah, I really hope that, you know, perhaps maybe you could utilize some of these reasons and be like, oh, that is where I'm kind of falling short of. Oh, I didn't realize that I was actually doing that and I probably shouldn't be. So yeah, let me know what reasons perhaps really, you know, stood out to you. Perhaps reasons that you were like, that is why I have not been seeing my progress, or that is something that really caught me out there. Let me know if there are any other sort of questions you have, anything else you want to see, you want me to cover. I'm more than happy to do so. Other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your night or day wherever you are. And again, if you haven't managed to like this video, give it a like. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe please, because it means the world to me, and I will see you guys very soon in another video. Bye.